You can feel it in the air, can't you? That strange quiet before something breaks. The kind of silence that hums under your skin, that makes your heart beat just a little too loud. Everyone's pretending everything's fine, smiling, scrolling, laughing like nothing's wrong. But you can tell, you can feel it. Something's coming. Not the kind of tragedy that makes headlines, no. This one's personal. The kind that knocks on your door and whispers your name. The kind that doesn't destroy buildings. It destroys illusions. Comfort is the sweetest poison. It wraps around you slowly, whispering that everything's fine, that you've earned the right to rest, to stop pushing, to stop noticing. It doesn't strike like pain, does it? Seduces. You start to confuse peace with paralysis. You start calling your cage a home. Comfort tells you that progress can wait, that discipline can wait, that your dream can wait. It pats you on the back while it robs you blind, stealing your hunger, your awareness, your edge. You stop moving forward, and you call it stability. But comfort doesn't care about your peace. It cares about your control. Because the more comfortable you get, the less you fight for more. You ever notice how quiet comfort feels? It's not loud like chaos. It doesn't make noise like pain. It creeps in, one small compromise at a time. You stop waking up early. You stop pushing limits. You stop questioning things. You trade your urgency for routine, your curiosity for comfort, your fire for safety. And soon, you're sitting in a life that looks calm from the outside but feels dead on the inside. That's the tragedy of comfort. It doesn't destroy you all at once. It kills you slowly, gently, until you can't even remember what it felt like to burn. People think comfort means happiness, but that's a lie. Real happiness comes from movement, from growing, from earning, from becoming. Comfort is the counterfeit. It gives you the illusion of peace without the substance of purpose. You start telling yourself you're fine, but deep down, you know something's missing. That quiet voice in your head starts whispering again, the one you've been ignoring. It says, asterisk, you were meant for more than this. Asterisk, but you silence it with distractions. You scroll, you talk, you eat, you sleep, anything to avoid that question. Because that question threatens the very illusion that comfort built for you. You see, comfort is not safety, it's surrender. It's the moment you stop demanding more from yourself because life stopped demanding more from you. You don't realize it, but the moment things got easy, something inside you started dying. The part that was hungry, the part that fought, the part that dreamed without limits. You traded that for predictability, for the false security of I know what's coming next. But what's coming next isn't life, it's repetition. Comfort traps you in cycles, the false same job, the same people, the same thoughts. Every day feels familiar, and you call it peace. But peace without growth isn't peace. It's stagnation, dressed as serenity. The dangerous thing about comfort is how it disguises itself as self-love. You start saying things like, I deserve to rest, or I'm protecting my peace. But deep down, you know it's not about peace, it's about fear. You're afraid to fail again, afraid to start over, afraid to feel that discomfort that comes with growth. So you stay still, convincing yourself it's balance. But you can't heal in the same space that numbs you. You can't evolve while clinging to the very comfort that's keeping you small. You're not protecting your peace, you're protecting your limits. Comfort doesn't care about your dreams. It doesn't care about your purpose. It only cares that you stay exactly where you are. And it's clever, it knows how to talk to you in your own voice. It says, you're doing enough when you're not. It says, you're fine where you are when you're drowning. It says, be grateful when gratitude becomes your excuse for not changing. It makes mediocrity sound noble. It makes stagnation sound mature. It makes settling sound wise. Comfort convinces you to stop fighting and then applauds you for being content. That's the trap, the applause of your own complacency. You start to notice it when life begins to feel too quiet, not peaceful, empty. You stop feeling challenged. You stop feeling nervous. You stop feeling times alive. Asterisk, because comfort numbs everything. Not just your pain, but your passion. You lose your hunger. You stop chasing the thrill of the unknown. You stop asking times, what if? Asterisk. And when that happens, the tragedy has already begun. Because comfort doesn't just take your ambition, it takes your urgency. It makes you forget that time is moving whether you are or not. It makes you forget that the world doesn't pause for your hesitation. You see, life doesn't reward comfort. It rewards courage. And comfort is the opposite of courage. It's a slow, silent retreat from the life you were meant to live. You tell yourself, I'll move when I'm ready, but you'll never feel times ready. That's the lie comfort tells you, that someday you'll feel brave enough to leave it. You won't. The only way to break it is to move times while you're scared. Asterisk. To act times while you're uncertain. Asterisk. To risk the fall just to feel alive again. That's the part most people never reach, because comfort's grip is warm, familiar, and polite. It doesn't threaten you. It just waits for you to give up the fight. And that's why comfort is the real danger. Not chaos, not tragedy, not pain. Those things at least wake you up. Comfort keeps you asleep, eyes open, heart closed, breathing, but not really living. It's the most dangerous addiction of all, because it doesn't destroy your body, it destroys your drive. It makes you believe you've made it when you've only stopped moving. And while you sit there convincing yourself you're at peace, life quietly moves past you, taking every chance you never took. With it, denial is the prettiest kind of blindness. It doesn't come with closed eyes, it comes with selective sight. You see only what keeps you calm. You look right at the cracks in your life and convince yourself they're just shadows. You tell yourself everything's fine while your walls quietly crumble. You laugh when something inside you is screaming. That's denial, a performance so convincing you start believing it yourself. You know the truth. You felt it. But truth is heavy, and denial lets you breathe for free. So you take the easier deal. You trade awareness for comfort, and slowly, the light in you begins to dim. Denial is a quiet killer. It doesn't stab, it whispers. You're okay. It's not that bad. You can handle it. Later. And every time you repeat those lines, another piece of your awareness slips away. You stop noticing how your life is shrinking, how your fire is fading, how your days are starting to look identical. You call it stability, but it's sedation. You're not living, you're numbing. And the scariest part, the world rewards you for it. People call you calm. They call you strong. They call you patient. They don't see the cracks in your smile, the exhaustion behind your silence. You've mastered the art of holding it together while everything inside you falls apart. It's easier to live in denial than to face the truth, because the truth demands change. It demands loss. It demands confrontation. And no one wants that. Denial lets you pretend you're still in control. You tell yourself that if you ignore the storm long enough, it will pass. But storms don't pass, they build. And by the time you decide to face them, they've already learned your name. You think you're buying time, but you're only feeding the inevitable. You're feeding the tragedy before it even arrives. Because denial doesn't stop destruction, it only delays it. You can see it in people's eyes when they're living in denial. That distant look when they talk about their future like it's guaranteed. That fake laugh when they say, "I'm fine." That slight tremor when silence gets too loud. They're scared of the truth, not because it's painful, but because it demands responsibility. Once you admit the truth, you have to act on it. You can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending. So people stay blind. They build their whole identity around not knowing. And the longer they stay in denial, the more fragile their world becomes. Because deep down, they know truth doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It waits. Denial blinds you long before destruction does. That's the trick. Tragedy doesn't start with chaos. It starts with silence. With all the little moments you saw the signs and did nothing. When your gut screamed and you laughed it off. When your instincts begged you to move and you said, "Not yet." That's how it begins. Every ignored warning is a brick in your own downfall. You think you're protecting yourself by not facing it, but you're only giving it room to grow. Denial feeds what truth could have killed early. By the time you wake up, it's already too late to prevent. All you can do is survive. And maybe that's why most people prefer the lie. Lies feel soft. Truth burns. Denial gives you a pillow. Truth gives you fire. But fire is what forges you. Fire is what makes you real. Denial only delays the inevitable pain you need to become who you're meant to be. It's funny, isn't it? The thing you run from is the very thing that would have saved you. You avoid confrontation thinking it's chaos, when really it's freedom. You avoid pain thinking it's punishment, when really it's awakening. You avoid change thinking it's danger, when really it's your evolution waiting to begin. But denial, it tricks you into thinking you're safe. It builds you a comfortable coffin. It tells you that peace means avoiding pain. It makes you live small, predictable, numb. You stop asking hard questions. You stop dreaming wild dreams. You stop fighting the slow decay of your own spirit. You live like you've got forever when time's been whispering your deadline. You think you're in control because everything looks calm. But that's the calm of a bomb before it detonates. Denial doesn't protect you from tragedy. It prepares you for it by keeping you blind until it hits. You ever notice how truth doesn't chase you? It just waits. It doesn't argue. It doesn't scream. It knows you'll come back, broken, tired, begging for what you once avoided. Because denial is exhausting. Keeping up the lie drains more energy than facing the truth ever could. And when it all finally collapses, when the job, the relationship, the illusion falls apart, that's not the tragedy. The tragedy is that you saw it coming and chose not to act. You mistook denial for hope and hope for control. But real control isn't about pretending the storm isn't coming. It's about preparing for it while everyone else still calls the sky clear. Denial gives you temporary peace but permanent regret. It's the art of staying blind until the darkness no longer hides what's coming. You think you're safe because nothing's falling apart yet, but nothing stays still forever. The truth doesn't need your permission to arrive. It comes when it's ready, and it doesn't knock, it breaks the door. And by then, the warning signs you ignored become the debris you have to crawl through. That's what denial does. It buys you calm while it builds your collapse behind the curtain. It makes you comfortable while the clock runs out. You don't see the tragedy. coming because you convinced yourself it couldn't happen to you. Tragedy doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to expose what you've been pretending to be. It peels away the layers you built to survive, the masks you glued to your face, the lies you told yourself to make it through the day. Everyone talks about how pain breaks people, but what it really does is reveal them. It shows you who you are when the act falls apart, when there's nothing left to hide behind, nothing left to impress, no audience left to applaud. That's when you meet yourself, the version that doesn't care about appearances, the one that bleeds honesty instead of words. And that version, the raw one, is the real you. Pretending is easy when life is calm. You can fake confidence, fake happiness, fake control. You can wear success like armor, hide behind smiles that don't reach your eyes, tell stories that sound better than your truth. But tragedy strips all that away. It takes your stage, it cuts the lights, and it forces you to perform without a script. You can't lie to pain. Pain doesn't believe in your act. It sees straight through you to your fear, your regret, your truth. It doesn't ask who you pretend to be. It shows you who you've always been, beneath the noise. And that's why tragedy feels so violent, not because of what it takes, but because of what it reveals. People spend their whole lives building identities made of convenience. They become what's acceptable, not what's authentic. They say the right things, chase the right dreams, fit into boxes designed by people who never understood them. They call it life, but it's a disguise. And when tragedy comes, it tears the disguise apart. Suddenly, the job title doesn't matter. The approval, the attention, the status gone. You're left standing in the ruins, facing the one thing you avoided the most, yourself. And it's terrifying at first, because truth doesn't feel comforting when it's been buried too long. It feels like exposure. It feels like being caught. You realize how much of your world was built on illusion. The people you thought would stay disappear. The things you thought mattered turn to dust. The strength you thought you had dissolves when it's tested. Tragedy doesn't just break your life, it breaks your image of yourself. It makes you question everything, who you are, what you've done, what you've believed in. But in that questioning, something real starts to breathe. Because once the pretending dies, the truth begins to live. That's the strange mercy hidden inside the pain. It takes everything false from you until only what's real remains. You start to see things differently. The people who once impressed you don't anymore. The goals that once drove you lose their shine. You stop chasing validation because tragedy teaches you what truly matters. Survival, honesty, peace. You stop caring how things look and start caring how things feel. You realize how much of your life was performative, how much of your energy was spent maintaining an image you never even liked. And now, stripped of all that, you feel something you haven't in years, clarity. The kind that burns, but purifies. The kind that doesn't flatter you, but frees you. Tragedy forces honesty out of you. You can't fake strength when you're broken. You can't fake control when everything's falling apart. It makes you speak the truth you never dared to before. It makes you admit things you buried. You say things like, "I'm not okay," and "I'm scared." And for the first time, those words don't sound weak, they sound real. Because there's power in facing yourself without disguise. There's power in saying, "This is me," even when it's messy, even when it's shattered. That's where transformation begins, not in perfection, but in exposure. You start to understand why things had to break. The pretending had gone too deep. You were too good at faking it, too addicted to your own illusion. Life had to tear it all down to save you from yourself. That's what tragedy does. It interrupts the performance. It walks right into your script and rewrites it in blood, in tears, in truth. It's not cruelty, it's correction. Because if nothing ever broke you, you'd never stop pretending. You'd stay asleep in your comfort, blind to who you could be if you just faced the truth. And when it's all stripped away, when the roles, the routines, the false smiles are gone, what's left is terrifying but pure. You start moving differently. You stop talking to fill silence. You stop chasing what doesn't feel right. You stop trying to impress ghosts. You start craving peace over attention. You stop performing and start existing. And you realize that tragedy didn't ruin you, it revealed you. It showed you the real weight of your own soul, the one you hid behind all the noise. It's ironic, isn't it? The very thing you thought would end you was the thing that finally made you real. That's why tragedy is necessary. Because without it, you'd live your whole life pretending to be happy, pretending to be fulfilled, pretending you're not terrified of being seen. But tragedy doesn't let you hide. It rips the stage away and says, "Show me who you really are." And when you finally do, you realize something powerful. The truth was never your enemy. The enemy was the version of you who believed you had to pretend just to survive. You know what's funny? People love to talk about loyalty until it costs them something. They'll scream about being real until being real means standing next to you when you're losing everything. They'll clap when you're on the stage, but they'll vanish when the lights go out. That's the thing about this world. It doesn't love loyalty. It loves convenience. It doesn't want truth. It wants comfort. And when you stop serving its comfort, when your presence starts to make people uncomfortable, that's when they turn on you. Not because you changed, but because you stopped pretending. That's when you see who's actually with you and who was just renting space in your story for the benefits. See, when life starts falling apart, people act like they don't know you. They walk past like your name never lived in their mouth. They forget the laughs, the promises, the late nights when you help them breathe again. Suddenly, you're invisible. And that's the moment you realize loyalty was never about words, it was about weather. It's easy to be loyal when the sun's shining, when everything's good, but wait until the storm hits. Wait until you're bleeding, broken, misunderstood. That's when loyalty gets tested. That's when faces start to fade, when people you swore would never leave start disappearing one by one, like ghosts leaving a burning house. Not because they hate you, but because the fire exposes what they really are. People think loyalty is a bond. It's not. It's a mirror. It reflects the truth about who someone is, not what they say. Anyone can smile with you when you're winning. Anyone can post about love and friendship when everything's easy. But loyalty, real loyalty, is quiet, inconvenient, and often lonely. It shows up in the dark when nobody's watching. It doesn't care about applause, doesn't demand recognition, doesn't expect repayment. It's not glamorous. It's gritty. It's uncomfortable. It means standing beside someone when standing beside them could ruin your reputation. It means keeping their name safe even when yours is being dragged through mud. That's the kind of loyalty that scares people because it demands courage, not comfort. You'll learn that betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. It comes from the ones who said, "I'd never." The ones who swore they'd stay. The ones who smiled the widest when you were up and watched silently when you started to fall. They don't stab you in the back, they drain you slowly, with silence, with absence, with excuses dressed as reasons. They'll tell themselves they didn't mean to hurt you, But loyalty isn't about intentions, it's about choices. They chose not to show up. They chose to look away. And that's the truth most people can't handle. Because if they admitted that, they'd have to face how fragile their own loyalty really is. But here's the strange part, betrayal. It teaches you better than loyalty ever could. You start seeing patterns. You start noticing energy instead of words. You stop believing in promises and start watching behavior. You start realizing how expensive loyalty is and how few people can afford it. You begin to understand that not everyone who walks with you is walking times for times you. Some just walk beside you because the path is smooth. And the moment it gets rough, they vanish, pretending it was always meant to end that way. That's the nature of people. They'll rewrite the story to make themselves look loyal, even when they were the first to run. You can't beg people to stay loyal. You can't convince them to see your worth when their eyes are blind by comfort. Loyalty can't be taught. It can only be proven. And once you realize that, you stop expecting it from everyone. You stop giving all of yourself to people who give you fractions. You stop explaining your pain to people who were never planning to understand. You stop chasing ghosts and start guarding your energy. Because you learn that loyalty isn't about how many stand with you, it's about who's still there when everyone else walks away. It's ironic, isn't it? The same people who once said, "I'll never leave," are the first to close the door behind them. But don't hate them. They're teachers. They showed you who not to trust. They showed you how to love without dependency, how to stand without support. They stripped you of illusion. They made you stronger, colder, wiser. They taught you to trust silence more than promises. And in a way, you should thank them, because without betrayal, you'd still be surrounded by masks. You'd still be mistaking proximity for loyalty. You'd still be giving your heart to actors. Loyalty now, it looks different. It's not about grand gestures. It's about small consistencies. It's the person who checks in when you disappear. The one who defends you when you're not in the room. The one who doesn't need an audience to care. Those are the rare ones. The quiet ones. The ones who love without needing credit. You'll know them because they make you feel safe, not indebted. They remind you that loyalty isn't about blood or history, it's about spirit, about who stands with you when there's nothing left to gain. And once you find that, once you experience real loyalty, you stop settling for anything less. That's what the world doesn't tell you. Loyalty will cost you. It'll demand honesty, patience, and strength. It'll hurt because most won't match it. You'll give it freely and get silence in return. You'll protect people who wouldn't even text back. You'll bleed for people who wouldn't even stay. But that's the beauty in it. You'll learn that loyalty says more about you times than them. It's a reflection of your soul, not their response. Because even when they fail, you don't. Even when they walk away, you remain true. And that, right there, is what separates the ones who pretend from the ones who are real. You ever notice how the room starts to feel smaller before you're pushed out of it? How the laughter gets quieter, the smiles get thinner, the air gets heavy like it's trying to tell you something. You start sensing it before it happens. The shift, the sideways glances, the fake concern. It's not paranoia, no. It's recognition. You've outgrown the room, and they can feel it before you do. You think you're still one of them, but the truth is, you've already become something else. And people don't like what they can't control. They'll call you arrogant for evolving, ungrateful for wanting more, disloyal for refusing to shrink. But deep down, they know the truth. Your presence exposes their comfort, and your growth threatens their stillness. You see, people love you when you're predictable, when you stay in your place, when your dreams are small enough to make them feel tall. But the moment you start breaking patterns, the moment you start talking different, thinking different, asterisk, moving times different, suddenly you're the problem. Suddenly you've changed. But that's what growth does, doesn't it? It disturbs people who've built their peace around your limitations. They'll start whispering. They'll start turning the room cold. They'll start pushing you toward the door, not because they hate you, but because you no longer fit the version of you that they were comfortable with. You were never supposed to stay. You were supposed to outgrow it. You'll notice it's always the people who never dared to leave who'll tell you to stay. The ones who gave up on their own fire will tell you yours is too much. They'll call your vision unrealistic because theirs never made it off the ground. They'll mock your passion because it reminds them of what they lost. They'll call you crazy because you make them question their sanity. That's the game people project their own surrender onto anyone brave enough to keep going. And when that doesn't work, they'll isolate you. They'll try to make you believe you're the one who's wrong. That's how the world keeps dreamers small. It convinces them that solitude means they've failed, when in truth, it's just the birth of separation between who you were and who you're becoming. Sometimes the universe will use rejection as a way of removing you before you get comfortable. It will make people turn on you just so you'll finally move. It will dry up the well so you stop drinking poison. It'll take away applause so you learn how to clap for yourself. You think being pushed out is punishment, but it's protection. It's alignment disguised as loss, because you would have never left on your own. You were too loyal to the wrong room, too afraid to walk into the unknown. So the universe shakes the floor beneath you, breaks the bonds you clung to, and forces you to stand alone until you realize you never needed a crowd to validate your purpose. The rooms you outgrow will always talk about you like you were the problem. They'll twist the story, make it sound like you lost your way, when all you did was stop walking in circles. They'll laugh behind your back because it's easier than admitting they miss your light. But don't fight to stay where you're no longer respected. Don't beg for understanding from those committed to misunderstanding you. You owe no one an explanation for your evolution. You don't have to dim your energy to keep anyone comfortable. You're not meant to shrink to fit back into what you've already outgrown. You're meant to step out, even when the door closes behind you. You'll notice something strange happens when you finally leave. The noise stops. The chaos fades. The air gets lighter. You start breathing again, and you realize the heaviness wasn't life, it was them. The doubt, the gossip, the quiet envy that filled the air. You were suffocating in a place that couldn't hold your expansion. The silence that follows your exit isn't loneliness, it's freedom. It's the space your next chapter needs. Because you can't step into what's coming if you're still clutching what's gone. The ones who pushed you out did you a favor. They removed you from the cage you mistook for comfort. And you should thank them, silently. Because if they hadn't closed that door, you might have never found the key to your next one. You'll see that the world works in patterns. Every time you rise, something will try to hold you down. Every time you expand, something will shrink away. Don't chase after what's leaving. Don't apologize for your transformation. The people who are meant for your next level will meet you there, not drag you back. The rooms you lose aren't your punishment. They're proof of your progression. The ones who stay small will call you lost, but you'll know the truth. You're finally found. Because the moment you're pushed out of what you've outgrown, that's when you begin to see what was waiting outside all along. It's easy to confuse rejection with abandonment, but look closer. Rejection is the universe clearing your path. It's removing distractions disguised as friends, comfort disguised as purpose. It's redirecting you to something that matches the size of your spirit. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to break the frame. And every time you do, the world shakes. That's why they fear you. That's why they push you out. Because deep down, they know you're leaving.